Government shutdown avoided for now. Hello everyone, welcome back to Luce Discusses Everything. In today's video, we're going to discuss the government shutdown. Basically, what I mean to say is that in the late afternoon of September 29th, today is October 21st, around 1:46 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the President Biden late last night signed the 45-day funding bill. In other words, the government approved a bill that would fund the government for another 45 days, right? It appropriated funding for the government for the next 45 days. This is to buy themselves additional time for them to negotiate the actual yearly budget, the actual budget for next year, right? And this is after, and late at night, the House of Representatives passed and the Senate passed the measure to avoid a government shutdown. These are pictures from the Senate when they passed the measure by 88 votes to the rest of them, which are, I think it was 12-0. It was a whole mess. Basically, what happened is that the Republicans, on the side of the Republicans that weren't on the side of the more like rebellious types, the more standard issue Republicans, they went ahead with the Democrats and passed the bill forward, right? What essentially happened was that for the past couple of weeks, you've had infighting within the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives, right? As we all know, the House of Representatives is the master of coin. In other words, they are the ones who appropriate funding, who approve funding for in the United States. So any funding that needs to be approved and spread around the government needs to be approved by the House of Representatives. Right now, the House of Representatives is controlled by the Republicans by a narrow majority of 222 seats of the 218 that's needed to control the chamber. That being said, you only need around six votes to get a measure to not pass, right? So if you have six representatives that are voting no, and you have the other side, of course, the party not in power voting no as well, that the measure does not pass. What did you have on the Republican side? You had infighting between the Kevin McCarthy, in this case, and infighting between the more rebellious members of the caucus, the ones that are more Trump-aligned members of the caucus, like the Matt Gaetz of the world, like the Boebert of the world. This is in I think the House of Representatives over here in the Senate. And they essentially wanted cuts up to 30% for Social Security, Medicare, entitlement programs across the board in order for them to get any measure passed, any government funding bill passed. What happened? And late at night, like they couldn't come to the agreement between Speaker of the House and the more rebellious members of the caucus as to what they were going to cut. But we were getting closer and closer to the deadline. And when we approached the deadline, what McCarthy decided to do, instead of siding with these members of his own caucus, he decided to negotiate with Democrats, say, hey, can I just get a clean bill passed, and we'll get and manage to convince the Democrats with their votes to pass the measure, right? Because you had I think around 90 Republicans voted no for the measure. This government funding measure is called a stopgap funding bill, which is essentially like a bridge between a bridge of funding that takes you up until a certain date. It is not the budget. It's just an expansion of the old budget. That is what the stopgap bill is. And at the end of just before a couple hours before midnight on September 30th, they decided to pass this bill, negotiated with Democrats, say, hey, let's pass a clean bill. No Ukraine funding, which was a key sticking point and it has a mostly clean bill because there are a couple of provisions in this bill. Now they're calling it a bipartisan bill just to tout it, but in reality it's just an expansion of the previous year's funding into next year. So what happens next, right? This is what happens next, the next fight, right? On the Democratic side, more of the established members of the Democratic side, you have those who are the more inclined to be more neoliberal, who want to fight for Ukraine aid to be included in the next funding bill. On the Republican side, however, you have more of the right-wing members of the caucus who are already thinking about submitting a motion to vacate the seat against Kevin McCarthy. And what that means is that they will do, I think Matt Gaetz, if I'm not mistaken, will do everything in his power to get McCarthy out of power because he cannot be trusted upon. If you recall, just a couple of short months ago when we were approaching I think around June, when we were approaching the debt limit fight, the more right-wing members of the caucus wanted to have more severe cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and whatnot. We ended up with a bill that had no cuts to that. Just some additional taxes, some tax cuts on other sides, or cutting of funding on other sides, but not that much. So the debt ceiling was extended, was raised up until after the 2024 election, 2025. A similar thing happened in this case, but instead of government funding that will last up until 2025, you only have a 45-day funding bill. This is what they could agree upon, which means that in 45 days, we will have this same fight play out in the House of Representatives. In the meantime, we're not sure if Kevin McCarthy is going to be able to keep his job. The sad thing for anybody who's not in favor of Kevin McCarthy is that if you're a conservative, what alternative do you have? What consensus candidate do you have that is not Kevin McCarthy? We saw that fight play out early in January of this year when the Republicans had taken control of the chamber. So what are you going to see? Who is that consensus candidate, if any? What is most likely to happen, you have the motion to vacate the seat. He gets voted out, maybe, and then comes back and gets elected again as speaker after some grueling negotiation. That will probably take up a couple of weeks. Weeks that, frankly, the country doesn't have because they need to they need to pass another spending bill, another government funding bill. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, share this video with your friends. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.